This is Jason Wolford, and this is Meet the Pressers.
Meet the Pressers with Matt Mallory and Klint Necro. Brought to you by Public Safety and Education and the Trigger Pressers Union.
This episode is brought to you by Saber Red, pepper spray and safety products for all Americans. Next Level Training, makers of CERT training products. Mantis, Mantis X helps shooters suck less. Firearms Owners Against Crime Institute for Legal, Legislative, and Educational Action. Meet the Pressers is also supported by other shows, companies, and our Patreon members. Thank you.
Welcome, everybody, to Meet the Pressers. Meet the Pressers is a safe place for trigger pressers to congregate and talk about guns, gear, gadgets, political activism, religion, and sometimes legal action. My name is Klint Macro. I'm your co-host, and this is my wonderful colleague, Matthew Mallory, and he has the honor of introducing our very special guest tonight.
Hey, everybody, Matt Mallory here. So we've got Alan and Jason, and they're going to talk about Hawaiian litigation, what's going on out there in Hawaii, and the woes that they're dealing with. Klint doesn't have a little bit of dealing with it in Pennsylvania. I definitely deal with it here in New York. And we want to kind of bring something from way on the other side of the United States. And you guys, it's like noon there or something, right?
It's tomorrow, isn't it?
So... Jason, go ahead and give a little bit of background on yourself. We actually, I think, well, we probably met prior to that because you came to the Virginia class for Saber Red. So I certified you as a Saber Red instructor like 2 years ago. But
I certified him as a DSF instructor.
There we go. Look at that.
Yeah, look at that. It's like old home week.
Yep. For sure. And then we all got together with Masadayu back in November and did his Deadly Force instructor certification. So we were able to collaborate more even then. But give a little bit more about what you got going on, what you're doing out there in Hawaii and around the country.
Well, I've been on Maui here about 26, almost 27 years now. Probably about 12 years ago, a little over 12 years ago, we got involved more heavily in the firearms community. My wife and I, local gun shop here. We actually got involved with becoming instructors, helping them out, and started off as NRA instructors. And then later on, wound up becoming involved with the USECA, and that's how I met Klint and wound up meeting you in Virginia through Dawn in classes back there. We founded a nonprofit after the gun store closed here, and we work a lot with the youth kids here, the Maui Youth Rodeo program here for the safety and education for kids training so they can participate in the firearms portion of the rodeo programs out here. And yeah, we've kind of taken that on for ourselves, mainly educating for kids and general public as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. The nonprofit aspect's always good that people want to do that. It's few and far between these days compared to back in the olden days, right?
Yeah, most nonprofits these days are because they just do really horribly in this economy.
It's our passion. My wife and I, it's our passion. In fact, she's actually has a chapter for the Armed Women of America. Mm-hmm. She's a chapter leader here out in the state of Hawaii. She's the first chapter out here as well.
Matter of fact, I believe the last training counselor class in Wisconsin, I was there. Your wife was taking that as a training counselor. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. She just did the training counselor, and she was unable to attend the previous one, which I attended. So we kind of had to split it up. So, but yeah, we both got into doing that. So it's been a great pleasure for us to be selected for that program. We've actually been able to train up 12 new instructors out here on island, and yeah, it's been great trying to just spread this 2A community and education here.
That is great. Yeah, I'm actually in the middle of an instructor class right now that I'm instructing today and tomorrow. So pretty cool.
Oh.
So Alan, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you met this rascal here, Jason.
Well, my name's Alan Beck. I do civil litigation, mostly constitutional litigation in both California and Hawaii. I've been active in the Hawaiian firearms community for, about 13 years now. And, I met Jason, gosh, I want to believe at a gun rights event a few years back, and he's also a member of a gun rights, a Hawaiian gun rights organization that I'm very active with.
Very cool.
So what's obviously it's great to have you guys on the show, and you all clearly meet the criteria to be a guest on our show here, but there's a specific thing that's occurred recently that's kind of led us up to you being here to talk tonight. So can you give a little bit of background on what's going on?
Is that Alan or myself?
I guess either one.
Either one.
I tell you what, though, if you have your lawyer there to be able to speak for you, you might as well take advantage of it. That's kind of how I look at it.
That's kind of my thought as well, but okay, great.
Well, if either of you would like to expand upon where we're at today.
Sure, I'll take up your kind offer. And as a result of many years of litigation, Hawaii recently was compelled to start issuing permits for the first time in its history to a meaningful extent. And as a result of the Bruin decision and a Hawaii carry case that I was litigating, a Young v. Hawaii, that applied that to the Hawaiian Islands. The exceptional case standard was removed. That was basically the criteria that the government of Hawaii was using to say, hey, you don't get a permit. So that really scared a lot of people in Hawaii, and at least in the Hawaii government, I should say. There were a lot of people in the Hawaiian people that were overjoyed by this, and lots and lots of people started applying. So in coordination with a number of other states that are anti-gun, including New York, New Jersey, Maryland, California, just the regular people we have to deal with, they decided that they were going to pass a bill that made it so that you essentially, even with a permit, you can't carry in nearly the entire state. One of my other clients, Adam Kaspritsky, is a architect, and he compiled a map. He determined that the most recent legislation that we'll go into in a second prohibits 96.4% of the county of Maui from carrying, even if you're have a legal permit. Now, of the publicly accessible land, I should say. Now, Jason here, he's a law-abiding citizen. He's extremely well-trained, as both you can attest to. And he's gone through the hoops to get a permit so he can defend himself and his family. And what's the Hawaiian government done? They've decided that even though he's going through all those hoops, there was, I believe, Jason, correct me, about a year, right, where
Yes.
people in Hawaii were able to carry, and there were no incidents. They decided they were going to go ahead and essentially prohibit carry. And that's what they're doing, right? And this law only applies to law-abiding citizens. Mm-hmm. So essentially, prior to the litigation that Jason's a part of, you could carry on the sidewalk and in your car. And that, for practical purposes, that was it. So Jason being a good friend of mine, who I've known for several years, along with his wife, and one of my other clients, Adam Kaspritsky, we're all, they want to do something about it. And I happened to do the bulk of the Second Amendment litigation in the state of Hawaii. So we got together, we decided to come up with a lawsuit. And that's why we're here. We're challenging that law. In the trial court, the law went into effect on July 1st, about 8 days prior to the law going into effect. Jason and I filed a temporary restraining order. It took a little more than 8 days for the court to rule on the case, but about a month later, we got an injunction against all the parts of the law that we're actually challenging in this case, because we're not dealing with a lot of since we're dealing with a new body of law. What I want to do was make sure all the places that really impacted my clients would get dealt with in this lawsuit, and then maybe in a subsequent case we could deal with a little bit more niche areas. So, just an example, Jason lives on the county of in the county of Maui. You know, like all the Hawaiian Islands, there's a lot of beaches. I don't think that's a surprise to anyone. They have banned carry on any public beach, in any park, and I'm not talking about the park next to your house. That's included, of course, but we're talking about parks are thousands of acres long. I don't know the geography of Maui as well as Jason does, but I mean, just Jason, I mean, what's one of the larger parks, for example?
Probably one of the larger parks. The beach parks would be like Kaanapali Beach Park. Would be one of the larger ones. Fleming's on the west side, which is where I reside, is one of the larger beach parks as well.
I mean, say one of the state parks. Just as an example, what's the largest state park in Maui?
Probably like Eel Valley State Park,
And how
or
big is it? Roughly, just a ballpark here.
God, it's a couple hundred acres, I believe,
Yeah.
going all through the.
Wow.
Yeah, hundreds of acres. We're talking about woodlands, wild animals. There's frankly, there's no law enforcement whatsoever. So I'll go in there, and they've deemed this a sensitive place. The Supreme Court said in the Bruin opinion that you have to have a historical analog. That means, in order to have a gun control law, that in layman's terms means you have to see what the founding fathers were doing in that generation, and say, were they banning carry? There's absolutely no good faith belief that the founding fathers said you could not carry a gun in the middle of the woods.
Yeah, these kind of unreasonable expansions of sensitive areas is happening in all of the states. I think it may have hit New York first, as I recall, and I'm sure Matt could speak to that.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into your state is worse than my state's worse than your state kind of stuff. But SB1 passed in Maryland. The legislation changed in New Jersey. They're fighting this in Massachusetts right now. It went through their House and needs to go through their Senate. And these cases are very, very important because they set precedent. And even though it's in a different district, we can still, when someone is fighting these on the other side of the country, we can still cite that this was ruled this way or that way in other parts of the country. And I think it's fair to say, when you look at the Constitution and you look at the Bruin decision, these states that are looking to expand their governmental overreach are going to really have a hard time with it. And what I'm finding is whenever that gets challenged, where there's injunctions, a lot of times they don't want to take it up to the next step because ultimately it goes to the Supreme Court. And I don't think any of them want that to happen with this particular political climate. So it's kind of like the anti-gun playbook is always, let's go for everything. And then whenever there's some kind of compromise, then it's over here. But still, they still have some restrictions that they've imposed on the law-abiding citizen. I find it's also funny you said that the government got a little bit scared. It's interesting how some governments really quake in their boots when the individual citizen actually reaps the benefits of the Constitution and is able to freely exercise their rights. I think that's a pretty good tell.
Well, I think something important to note is that for the most part, not one state is worse than another in these post-Bruin bills. And my point is, this is part of a coordinated national effort. Hawaii did not decide to do this on its own. New York did not decide to do this on its own. This is being done on a national level by a pretty small group of people that frankly do not want you to be able to exercise your Second Amendment rights anywhere. And this is part of a national campaign by a small group of national groups that are doing everything and anything to undermine the Supreme Court's decision in Byrne, as they have been, just Second Amendment in general, as they have been for decades.
I'm guessing then, because of this expansion of law that went into place in July, have citizens kind of waned applying for their license to carry, or are they still going out there trying to get it anyhow?
Well, shortly after we we were granted a temporary restraining order, which was converted into a preliminary injunction. And that's just legal jargon for the time the lawsuit's going on. The new law is not in effect.
Okay.
So people can carry right now in Hawaii because of Jason's lawsuit. And Jason can speak a little bit more about rates of applications and issuance right now in the county of Maui.
Yep, County of Maui, we can carry here in Maui County and Kauai County because of the work Alan's been doing with our case. Big Island and Oahu do have county ordinances, which are still affecting those folks. But for us here in Maui County and Kauai County, we have been getting quite a lot of people still wanting to get their permits once they found out that they can do it, and they are truly actually issuing permits. There is a delay here right now with permitting issues, though. There's a little bit of a delay in that because it is such a new process here. The police department is having to figure that out. And come January, there's new requirements as far as class training and proficiency disciplines and things like that, which Matt has up there. Not quite as many hours as what you folks have up there in New York, but there's some new stuff coming. So there's a big push right now for people trying to get their applications in before the end of the year, because all those kinks, I guess you would say, have not been ironed out as far as how that process is going to look after January. For concealed and also to acquire permits to acquire firearms.
So a question for you, Alan, on that side. I know in New York, with the 18 hours of training that they're requiring, that's not been something that many, if any, lawsuits. I think there's only one lawsuit that's gone forth to the district court, and it actually hasn't even made it that far. It was in the initial lawsuit, but the judges didn't rule on that, and it kind of disappeared. And my assumption is in New York, the 18 hours of training isn't going to be challenged, isn't going to be removed, at least currently, from the law. Whereas things like sensitive locations, restricted locations, carrying in churches, those things are more likely. The First Amendment, being able to submit your social media information to your agency and such, all that is widely contested. But the training really hasn't had much of a court presence, if you will. Are you guys thinking the same out there in Hawaii, or is that something you're strongly going after as well, as get rid of the training aspect of it?
That's something that I certainly believe is unconstitutional. Mm-hmm. And I know essentially most litigators in the New York cases and all that. I don't know a single one, the people litigating the sensitive places cases, that think that 18 hours of training is okay. It's just simply a matter of time, and I certainly can see some of the training requirements in Hawaii being challenged, some of the requirements, as far as I can tell, just really are not feasible for someone that is elderly or physically infirm from being able to do, and they certainly are not related to home defense or carry outside the home just for self-defense, I should say. But so at some point, absolutely, I believe they should be challenged. I probably will be the one challenging them. And I also strongly suspect that a lot of the other states, including New York's training requirements, are going to be challenged at some point. I mean, but it's just simply a fact is these lawsuits take a lot of time, and they take a lot of effort, and you have to prioritize what you can challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you look at Hawaii now, I'm not terribly familiar with the demographics. I did get to visit Hawaii when my wife was pregnant, and I was interested to see how much salt was in the water. You kind of float on top of the water, which was kind of an interesting thing. But there's less people in Hawaii than there are in some of the other states. So does that affect the time by which these cases are heard by the court, or is it still kind of you have no idea? There's no way to predict exactly when they'll say, "Okay, it's your time."
Well, Hawaii is in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals,
Mhm.
and that's ultimately where these cases go.
Mhm.
Um, the Our court system, our federal court, isn't quite as impacted at the trial court level as other places, but these cases take a long time.
Mhm.
In any federal court. I mean, I had a lawsuit that on Hawaii's carry regime, and that took 10 years to resolve. Right now, I'm at the Ninth Circuit challenging Hawaii's butterfly knife laws, and I just won from a three-judge panel. I filed that lawsuit in 2019, and that case is not resolved because there's a potential en banc process. There's potential the state will take that case to the U.S. Supreme Court. So here we are, years later, and you know, I may have a couple more years of litigation. That I've got several other cases just like that. And the reality is, yes, certain trial courts are more impacted than others, but that sort of evens itself out at the appeal level.
I see.
A lot of people don't understand, and this is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Alan. When it comes to lower courts, they have to hear the case, but there's nothing in the law that says how long it takes them to hear the case. It's all based on caseload. Where the Supreme Court can, if they choose to, give writ of certiorari to be able to hear a case, and that's based on them voting internally, saying, "Yeah, we'll take this case or we won't." And if they give writ of certiorari, then they can hear. So they have the option to hear it if they choose. And some people don't even know that the SCOTUS ruling on Bruin, the Bruin decision, New York State NYSERPA against Bruin, it took 7 years to get to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's absolutely right. I mean, I've had appeals, and I had a free speech appeal last year that from the time that I argued it, it took them 13 months to write the opinion.
Hmm.
So even after it gets argued, I mean, that's the issue. This is why I'm grateful that we're getting a lot of movement in Hawaii. Jason and I both are very active with a grassroots a firearms organization called the Hawaii Firearms Coalition. And we tell people that you need to get the legislature and you need to stop these bad laws before they go into effect.
Absolutely.
Or else you're going to hope that you get someone like Jason that's willing to participate in a lawsuit, and we're going to and hope that Jason is willing to stick with it for 5-6 years, along with my other clients. It's just not. It's a slow drag, and in that time, the unfortunate thing is, other bad laws can get passed.
Yeah.
So, in order to, the only real way to keep your freedoms is for individual people to be proactive in their local legislatures and make sure that every single legislature session, people show up, and they make sure that they're mad, that people know they're mad and they don't want to lose their rights. It's sometimes you simply have to get into you have to get in their face and you have to say, we don't want to lose our rights. And the crazy thing is, there's some people who just simply true believers in what they're doing, and there's nothing you can do to convince them outside of potentially letting them know they can get voted out of office. But there have been left-wing politicians that have actually changed their minds in Hawaii.
Mhm.
After they knew this actually impacted people. Sometimes it was because they didn't know what the law was going to do. And other times they just genuinely felt, oh, I thought this was what everyone wanted. I had no idea that people were angry about this. So we have managed to kill a lot of bills, so a lot of people in Hawaii, and my understanding is the case in a lot of other, Democrat strongholds. There's a sense of defeatism that you can't win. But at a bare minimum, if you get out there and you engage, you can at least slow it down. And then, you can win, you can push back in the court system. But that only happens if people are active in the legislature, active with their politicians,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. We have an election coming up. And, how many of our viewers know who's running and know what they stand and what they're all about?
Yeah.
We actually lost our House of Representatives here in Pennsylvania to the anti-gun side by 1 seat in the last election. And we've been able to stave off a couple really nasty laws because we still have one pro-gun Democrat, Representative Frank Burns. He still votes very, very pro-gun. He's certainly doesn't see eye to eye with the Republicans on many other things, but when it comes to individual rights and the Second Amendment, he's hard and fast. So, with him and then just one more, we could find another Democrat that would vote in favor of, or rather against, some of these anti-gun things that we've had. We've been able to stave off a lot of that stuff. Luckily, right now we have a pretty good pro-gun presence in the Senate, so something likely to pass the Senate is pretty low. But the problem is in Pennsylvania, anyhow, and it may be the case in some of the other states, you have a lot of folks that they vote the way their union tells them, or they vote Democrat because they've been Democrat their whole life. And it's not always just the Democrats. Certainly there are some Republicans out there that are putting forth some trash when it comes to our Second Amendment. But people have to vet the individual candidates and learn about them and then vote accordingly. If the Second Amendment is important enough for you to carry that gun and invest all the time and money, and in states we have to do mandatory training, it's very costly to get your license to carry. Well, shouldn't you want to have people in office that are going to protect that right?
Yeah, and I think especially in a state like Pennsylvania, something that's really important now. And I've been doing very active, actually most of my life, even before I was an attorney, in not just gun rights, but other aspects of conservative activism. And it's just simply because something doesn't impact you doesn't mean A, that's worth fight. It's not worth fighting for, and B, just because you think something's not going to impact you doesn't mean in the long term it is going to impact you. And as applied to gun rights, what's important is Pennsylvania is a great hunting state. My friends that live there, they tell me about the first day of deer season and just how big of a day it is. Yeah. But the other side of that is there's a lot of people in areas like that don't realize that this push to ban self-defense rights is just because it's easy. You get you can put an AR-15 up there, you can demonize it, you can say a lot of stuff, and you tell them that, hey, we're not coming for your hunting rifle, your bolt action rifle.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. That's just a tactic to divide us.
You're absolutely right.
And today they're biting a little bit of elephant. They're just biting a little of this. They're dividing us up, trying to take a little bit of our rights. And it will come a day, if they manage to succeed on one aspect, they'll just spur them on. Because ultimately, there's a segment of our society that doesn't believe the American citizen has a right to be armed.
And the scary thing out there is, like in New York as an example, we got 5 million gun owners in New York State. 5 million. With 5 million gun owners, how possibly could our current governor have won with just over 3 million votes? Less than 3 million people voted against her. If all 5 million gun owners plus the other ones out of that 3 million that aren't gun owners, it would have been a landslide. But there's a lot of people that don't vote, don't get involved, like Alan said you should, and I totally agree. And then there's a lot of people that have guns that think guns are for hunting four-legged animals and don't even consider the fact that two-legged animals try to hunt you too, and you should know how to defend yourself against them.
Well, and more importantly, an armed and educated citizenry is a true deterrence against tyranny.
No.
We are the ultimate fourth check and balance.
Yeah.
And, I say fourth when actually it's the first check and balance.
Yeah.
But I think government in general are certainly, it's not just people being armed. There really seems to be pushing an agenda of they want us to be less self-sufficient in general.
Absolutely.
Whether that be thought, food, care, protection, whatever, they want us to be dependent wholly upon the government. And that's where you have true control.
Well, that's absolute power corrupts absolutely. If that is the case, which I agree, then what do they have? They have absolute power. If we're dependent on them, they can tell us to do whatever they want. Stay in your house. Businesses are closed. Wear a mask, whatever.
Yeah. Save a life. Stay in your house.
Yeah. Get the pokey.
Wait, that sounded familiar. Like I may have heard that. I'm having a bad dream. It's 2020 again.
Yeah, 2020.
Yeah. Well,
I noticed here in Maui, in wake of our recent tragedy of the fires, believe it or besides people trying to apply for their permits before the end of the year and the changes, people have kind of woken up here quite a lot as far as being like you said, responsible for your food, your safety, and your security here because of the fire, because the government was preoccupied with everything else going on in Lahaina town and the fire and the burn zone. A lot of other people realized that we were truly isolated for, a couple weeks before anything could happen. So yes, we've seen a bit of awakening here for that. I've been getting quite a bit of phone calls and inquiries about that pretty much on a weekly basis, actually.
Wow.
Well, it's horrible that it takes something like that to open people's eyes, but we can make lemonade out of the lemons in that respect, that people are seeing value in exercising their own individual rights. And that's how we change the needle, I think. That, and by the work you guys are doing in court, like you said, court is the watchdog, and it's not sexy, and it takes a long time, and it's very expensive. Would you guys like to mention your GoFundMe to see if you can raise a few extra bucks to help fight this battle in court?
Yes, I actually emailed that to you. If you potentially could put up a link.
Okay, I'll put it up right here. Boop, boop. I'll put it right across the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, if any of you guys watching have a few extra bucks and $5, $10, whatever you can do would be very helpful, because this doesn't just affect the folks in Hawaii. This is going to set precedent that someday will be argued in New York and in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. And, if you have a few extra bucks, I really highly recommend you go ahead and donate a little bit to help this legal action.
And just to kind of give people a thought on that, remember, the Bruin decision that came down from the Supreme Court became the law of the land. It started in New York. This case could become the law of the land if it makes it to the Supreme Court. So just be mindful of that. And
just for anyone that's watching that lives in California, or for that matter, Alaska, Idaho, Montana, Arizona, Oregon, or Washington, or Guam or American Samoa, for that matter.
You practice in all those?
Well, no, that's what that and the Northern Marianas Islands. There are 8 states plus territories that comprises the Ninth Circuit.
Ninth Circuit, yeah.
So
Gotcha.
Jason's case is on Thursday. Jason and I will be filing our answering brief to the Ninth Circuit. We won in the trial court, so the government appealed. They've hired a very prominent national firm to defend this law.
Is it Everytown Law by chance?
No, it's they've hired the former Solicitor General of the United States. Because we're at the Ninth Circuit, the outcome of Jason's case will directly control the law in the 8 Western states and the territories. And now, most of those states are fairly firearm friendly, but California already has they passed identical law to Hawaii's.
Yeah.
And 2 lawsuits have been filed in California, but because the Hawaiian law was passed by the legislature first, so we filed first, Jason's case controls for California as well. So, and at the end of the day, that's simply the nature of the appellate court system. It doesn't matter where it starts from, Hawaii, Oregon, etc. It directly controls for all the states in that area.
Well, we wish you the best of luck. And Jason, thank you for having the courage to step up and put your name on this.
For sure.
Because I'm sure it wasn't an easy decision.
Mm-mm.
And I know, having worked with a lot of people and been in this, I haven't been the plaintiff, but my organization has been the plaintiff. I know you can take a lot of negative guff from a lot of different directions that just comes from nowhere, man. So I really appreciate what you're doing.
Very briefly before I conclude, I'd be remiss to not mention that I'm not the only attorney on this. My good friend, Kevin O'Grady, who is a Honolulu-based attorney, is my co-counsel in this matter. And again, I have 2 other plaintiffs and clients, Allison Wolford, who and Adam Kaspersky. And so Kevin O'Grady is my co-counsel. Just want to give him a little bit of make sure that he gets some credit, because these are very difficult cases. I think that it requires 2 attorneys and multiple clients to successfully prosecute them.
Well, fantastic. We definitely thank you for the work you're doing. I know you're probably putting in like tons and tons and tons of hours doing research and writing and all the stuff that lawyers do. Everyone gives lawyers a bad rap, man. I've had the pleasure of working with a bunch of lawyers. They're all pretty damn cool, especially those that fight for our individual rights and liberties. Thank you, sir.
Well, thanks everybody for watching. Make sure that you follow these guys, help out in any way that you can, monetarily support, spread the word, get the word out there. Cases like these in areas that are strongholds that they hate self-defense and hate the Second Amendment are ones that we need to get behind, support them, the attorneys, the cases, and at minimum, get the word out, spread the word, make it go viral. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Stay safe out there. Guys, thanks for coming. Stay safe.
Thank you, gentlemen.
There's a lot of sponsors that make this show possible, like Mantis.
Make sure you check them out and give them your business.
This episode is brought to you by Saber Red, pepper spray and safety products for all Americans. Next Level Training, makers of CERT training products. Mantis. Mantis X helps shooters suck less. Firearms Owners Against Crime Institute for Legal, Legislative, and Educational Action. Meet the Pressers is also supported by other shows, companies, and our Patreon members. Thank you.
Thanks for watching or listening to our show.
Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share. Click that little bell thingy so you know when the next episode's uploaded. Support us on Patreon. Come to one of our classes. Host us to come to you and do one of our classes at your location.
And until next time,
Adieu.
Thank you for watching Meet the Pressers.